someone wanted to argue that this is the best Star Wars show, I wouldn't push back too hard on that argument. Like, I don't know if I'm there yet, but like, I could see why people would say, this is my favorite, this is the best Star Wars show there's been. Like, yeah. I am loving Skeleton Crew so much.
Yeah. The best arguments and stuff, I always think those need a little bit of time to mature, and we need to see where this show ends up and if they stick the landing and all that kind of stuff. But I will say that I'm having more fun watching Skeleton Crew week to week right now than I have with a lot of the other shows in the past. Not that I didn't have, I always have fun watching week to week, but this one in particular is just really special feeling. I've really loved the conversations going on, in between episodes throughout the week and everything like that. It's just been a really good season of Star Wars so far.
And I think it's a really good balance of, like, they could do whatever they want to in this type of show format and it not feel like you have to watch it to understand any of the movies upcoming or movies from the past or anything like that. Like, it truly kind of stands alone within itself, but hints to other things where it's like the perfect balance in that. Whereas I feel like some other Star Wars TV shows are especially getting to a point where it's like, obviously, this is leading into the huge crossover movie or the Mandalorian and Grogu or something like that, and you're going to feel like you're missing out if you don't watch the show, which, I think they probably kind of want that a little bit so that people subscribe to Disney Plus. But I think this kind of gives you the perfect balance of all that, where you can really enjoy an adventure week to week and it not feel the pressure of how does this impact Luke Skywalker? You know what I mean? So yeah, the stakes simultaneously feel very low as far as, like, as Star Wars fans, the meta conversation. But they're appropriately high in the show to make it, like you said, a thrilling adventure. Just a great time week to week. So definitely agree with you there. And, like, this episode in particular, I think this one was my favorite one yet. And, I didn't get to watch right away when it dropped. And I think many people are probably in the same boat. And maybe there's even some people, like, realizing right now they haven't watched this episode. But I think this one has been my favorite to date. And it's just like one of those shows where each episode I'm like, I think this one's my favorite. No, I think this one's my favorite. And I think that's the hallmark of a really good show, where each week you're like, that was my favorite one. And so I'm really looking forward to next week's Bryce Dallas Howard episode, because I feel like this one really sets that one up very nicely.
Oh, yes.
Because there's so many mysteries, and we're going to talk about it in our breakdown in this episode. There's so many mysteries that are solved in this particular episode, but there's brand new ones that are open. And I think, again, that's just the perfect balance in a TV show of, like, okay, we're answering questions, so me and you are not going down that rabbit trail the entire season until the end of the show. We can put all that stuff to the side and focus on these new mysteries that they gave us.
Exactly. Yeah, like revelations like the Old Republic Mint thing with At Attin, like, I think that's a huge piece of information, because now we at least know the vicinity of what's going on. I still think there's more to it. I think we'll discover that there's more to it than just being an Old Republic Mint. Yeah. But we know why everybody wants to get there, why it would have value, to the galaxy, and we can talk a little bit about the economics of all that.
We're going to.
When we get there in the breakdown. But so, like, little tidbits like that were dropped, or the fact that we now know who the captain of the Onyx Cinder was for sure.
That's the big one to me, of like, okay, we found out who the captain is.
Right. So we still don't know exactly what's happened to him. So, like, we're still, the mystery's alive. We're still, really yearning for the rest of that story, but we know at least here is who the captain was. We have a name, somewhat of an identity, and we can now start learning about this person and start speculating from that place instead of the identity being a mystery. So I think that's really cool.
And I also think that we get some major clues on who Jod is and what his background is. Like, the show is pointing us in a direction, and Max vibroblade, which is like Occam's razor, but for Star Wars, tells us, okay, I think he's probably an Order 66 survivor, and we're going to be talking about all those clues in this episode.
Yeah, I think unless they really pull some kind of crazy bait and switch, I think we can safely say that, like, John used to be a Jedi of some kind. And of course, we'll talk all about that. But yeah, having a ton of fun with Skeleton Crew. You are listening to Children of the Watch. I'm Mac Lacey.
And I'm Alex Maxwell. And today we are breaking down the episode. Sorry. We are breaking down the episode of Skeleton Crew, the 5th episode. And if you're new to our podcast, we break down every single episode of Star Wars television, scene by scene, to analyze the story, find for Easter eggs, and explain how it all connects to the larger Star Wars universe. I got a little ahead of myself. I'm so excited to talk about this episode.
There's a little landmine waiting for you in the show notes, too.
There was an artifact, if you will.
Yeah, and it does that artifact related to our voicemail episodes that we do. We have the Skelephone hotline open for Skeleton Crew. We have been having a blast hearing your questions, theories, comments about the show. So we'll be doing that, later this week. So if you want to call in and leave, a voicemail for us and possibly find yourself on the show, you can do so at 205-259-6675. That's 205-259-6675.
You can also join the fun over on social media at COT Watch on X, Blue Sky, TikTok, and Instagram if you want to interact with us in that way. But Mac was just talking about the voicemail episodes. We also have a bonus voicemail episode that you can access through our Patreon, patreon.com/The Mandalorian Watch. For just $2 a month, you can gain access to our bonus voicemail episodes throughout the week. So that means you get 3 episodes covering Skeleton Crew weekly as we're in season, and we're going to be doing the same thing for Andor when season 2 comes out. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We always have fun over there. Over on our Discord as well, which you can get access to via our Patreon. So definitely check that out. But I am ready to talk about this episode. You've got a lot to learn about pirates. Episode 5. Are you ready to jump into this, Mac?
Let's do it, Alex.
So we begin this episode by checking back in on At Attin. Mm-hmm. And it kind of reminded me a lot of Andor and Cyril Karn's new workspace, where we see the rows after rows of analysts that includes Wendell. And Mac, he seems a little anxious. Right when we get on him, he seems nervous.
Yeah, practically like sweating, wiping his brow. I do think that At Attin might have the same corporate architect as Coruscant, where Cyril worked. Wherever that is. I think it's looking very similar. It looks, and we're getting a lot of. We get a better survey of the species represented on At Attin.
There is a Rodian.
Yes, there is a Rodian.
Yeah.
I think we had a YouTube comment or maybe a voicemail that we had at one point thought Rodians were not on At Attin, but they are.
Yes.
So there you go. But I don't know. It's just seeing all these different very Earth adjacent environments in the Star Wars universe is really cool, and I think it does continue to ground us as the audience, and like it almost forces us to relate to the story in a way that all of the piratey, more fantasy settings can't really.
Mm-hmm. By the way, and that's the thing that I think this show does really good at is each new location is really exciting to look at visually, and it's man, I want a story about Port Borgo, or I want a story about Lenoa that we'll talk about in a few moments. And just all these different planets and environments that we're getting are really, really cool and unique and awesome. But again, this is a very Earth-like environment, and I'm almost positive the guy, the workspace buddy behind Wendell, is playing solitaire on his computer, the Athorian. I'm almost positive he's playing that. But
he's doing the Wordle of the day.
Yeah. Neil's mom, Numa, enters the lobby area, and Wendell does his best to nonchalantly meet with her. And so he goes to meet with her over the railing overlooking a window, and Numa asks Wendell to help her steal a barrier access code. So that's a big deal because it kind of feels like maybe the parents are trying to leave.
Why else would they be trying to get this access code? There's another thing that I think could be going on based on a line that comes later.
Yeah, just trying to get a message out.
Right. Much in the way that Rogue One's final battle kind of hinged on the planetary shield being down to get a message out, kind of operating in a similar way.
Good call there.
If you'll recall, the kids had no problem getting out of the barrier, right? They didn't have a code or anything like that unless the ship was pre-programmed with one or something,
right.
But it seemed to me like they just left. So maybe leaving is not what the barrier necessarily prevents. It's messages, information getting out.
Well, there's probably no spaceships on this planet except the Onyx Cinder.
Right. I haven't seen any. Like, they don't have a spaceport or anything like that. So, it may be more about keeping information in and out rather than the actual people.
But what's also really interesting to me is, like, it seems like they know they're trapped, or like messages don't get out, right? So that knowledge is common to the adults.
Yeah, it could be that they have bought into something like, oh, this is for our protection, and that's the way that they're all knowledgeable of it but cool with it. But yeah, I was kind of surprised at the level of knowledge of their own isolation they had.
Yeah. At first, Wendell is a little hesitant since he doesn't have access clearance to the barrier, but Numa gives him like a little makeshift hard drive looking device, which he awkwardly inserts into his sleeve.
Yeah.
And Numa says they have to get that access code, and so he waddles back to his desk while Numa tries to discreetly walk away like nothing happened. Like, obviously, these guys are not spies or, anything like that. They're just normal people trying to do their best to save their kids. And at his desk, Wendell plugs in the hard drive into his computer, and while he's waiting, he's nervously looking at the safety droid. And the safety droid notices him, and it really detects that surge, like when he put it into the computer, and begins marching towards him while Wendell attempts to hide the cable, but the droid is on to him. So the droid detected a surge, and he wants to check the computer. Wendell tries to cover it up, but he only makes things worse. So the safety droid wants to ask what he's hiding in his hand, and it forces Wendell to raise a hand and then other hand, and then both at the same time. I thought this was really good Star Wars comedy here. And I almost had like deja vu of like, have we seen this recently in Star Wars before? Like, I feel like I've seen a scene where we had a conversation of like, why didn't they just ask him to raise both hands at the same time?
I don't know.
I had a moment watching this like at midnight, Christmas Eve. I was like, I've seen this before, I feel like, but
maybe it was the ghost of Christmas past visiting you.
Maybe it was Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Anakin visiting me. The ghosts, the Force ghost. Yeah, but I just like that. It was good Star Wars comedy, I thought, of like, I don't know, him trying to get away with that. But we cut to the Undersecretary's office, and the safety droid hands the drive to Farah, informing her what happened. And he asks if he should initiate security protocols. Farah acts quickly and orders the droid to delete all recordings of the incident and to power down. Mm-hmm. Wendell comes in, and Farah closes the curtain. I love the little touch of like her closing the curtain, because even though like, everyone else in the office wouldn't know what is going on,
right? She
is so worried about like maybe the safety droid seeing them talking, the idea of the supervisors always watching. I think that was a nice little touch there.
Yeah, well, I think it's also kind of a clue into Farah's predicament that she finds herself in, because it's obvious that she has authority over the security droids, probably to grant barrier access or whatever, but she's having to keep up appearances because all of these things would be going against her position, her place in this society. Like she has a role that she's been given and certain responsibilities that go with that. And so she has to make it appear, regardless of what she's actually doing, or helping people do, that she's, that nothing's going on. So I don't know. It's interesting. Like, I think she could just, fix everything with a snap of her fingers, pretty much, in terms of the authority she has, but she's trapped by the appearances of things.
Yeah. And I don't know, it just seems like the supervisor has a ton of power too, right? To be that worried about it, and, what the safety droids and their security protocols could do. It makes me lean more towards your original theory of, like, when this, the first 2 episodes came out, you were kind of leaning, even really before that, of like a supercomputer maybe running everything. And I don't know. I go back and forth about that, but it feels like there is some element of, like, some all-powerful droid in charge.
That would speak to, like, the longevity of being able to keep this isolation alive, because I think we'd see a lot more changes through time if people were involved. Like, just that's the nature of people.
What if it's like a cyborg type situation where it's like a living being fused with technology, kind of like KB? Maybe KB is being groomed to become the next supervisor. I don't know, but like that just popped into my head. But like a Lobot situation where it's like it's maybe it's a little bit of both, and maybe the theory of Tech Rennod being the supervisor is still alive. But there's evidence for it and against it in the same episode.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll have to talk about that when we get there.
Yeah. So Farah chastises Wendell for not waiting, and he explains that the drive is a way for them to get a message out to the children. And Farah responds that she is handling the problem through proper channels, which is the only way to get the children back. And Wendell says that the supervisor is not going to help them, and Farah sighs, realizing he's right. So she asks him about his plan, and we cut to black, title credits, skeleton crew. And Mac, I just love that the parents are active, that they're actually trying to save their kids, because so often in these type of narratives, the parents are just oblivious. And so it's nice to see them, like, trying something.
Right, yeah. I did feel the parents' absence last week after they had such a big, prominent focus put on them in episode 3. So it was good to see them return to that and pick up on the threads. And it looks like, kind of what we talked about is happening. They're sort of going to see the wizard, if you will. Like, they're working from the other side of things to find their kids, to get them back. And that makes me very excited for their perspective on the mysteries of At Attin. Like, I think we're going to get to see kind of both sides of things unravel simultaneously. One side from the skeleton crew, one side from the parents on the ground. Yeah.
I don't know. There's still part of me that thinks that there's two different things going on At Attin, and the parents represent the Old Republic Mint side of things. And Wim and crew represent the mystical side of things. And I don't know if that is the case, and it's just the Old Republic Mint is the eternal treasure. That's what it means, and it's more of a producing the currency of the galaxy thing, and that's all it is.
Right.
But I can't help but get the story pad out of my mind in terms of what Wim was reading. He even mentioned the Jedi Temple going down and coming back up and stuff. Like, I just feel like there's something to that on At Attin.
Yeah, I think we know about the Republic Mint thing now, but that's only part of the mystery. I'm right there with you. There's a reason why At Attin was isolated in the way it was, because it's just the last Republic Mint. It didn't say it was the only one. So, like, I don't know that in and of itself makes At Attin so special. I just think that's why all these pirates want to get to it.
And then, of course, there's the banking clan, which we're going to have to talk about. Like, and that was a very pointed comment that they put in this episode that, like, okay, we just got done with the Acolyte, and someone involved in the banking clan was in that final episode. So it's like, we're going to get to that conversation, but there's just something going on here that I think operates on several levels. Yeah. Like again, the maybe the First Order side, but then there's also a mystical side here too. Yep. So we open back up on the Onyx Cinder, and the crew has SM-33 tied up with the ropes. I love that.
It's not going to do anything.
Yeah. And Wim is questioning if they should even try to bring SM-33 with them, but Fern points out that SM-33 is the only one that knows the way to At Attin. And there was part of me questioning, like, why don't they just go to one of the other At planets and see if the coordinates are still on the supervisor tower there? But you don't know the condition of those planets, and they just got from At Akron, which is not going well. Yeah. So, like, I think it's probably better to go with, okay, SM-33 knows, we'll just do that instead of going to the other planets.
Yeah. We had kind of theorized they may have to go to another At planet. It may still be the case that, because we don't have a definitive, like, they're back at Attin next episode or anything like that. But, it definitely seems like they're kind of, they're wanting us, I think, to stay off of At Attin longer, right? Like, there's more story to tell out there, and they're holding off maybe give the parents time to find out some things, to give us some reveals from that side of things. I don't know.
Think probably for a cameo next week.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's coming up with Bryce Dallas Howard next week. Yeah. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. So KB says that she rerouted the memory trip so that he won't get overloaded, and Neil isn't so sure, reminding everyone that he tried to kill them limb from limb. Him specifically. Jod tries his best to reassure them, which has Fern questioning his motives, saying he only wants the treasure, and Jod says that they only want to get home. And they have this little back and forth, calling each other scared, and it's kind of our first hint in this episode of challenge out of Jod. Like, his attitude is starting to shift a little bit of like, he's not that he's annoyed, but he's like really eager to get to the treasure, it feels like.
And it's almost like the first sign of him lowering himself to the kids' level.
Yes.
Of things, right? Because he's just like participating in this name-calling exchange, you know?
Yes.
It's like, instead of taking the high road as he kind of has been before. But yeah, I definitely think that's a good observation. It's kind of the first hint that we get that maybe he's got some other gears turning in his head.
And I just got to say, it was brilliant casting to get Jude Law as this character. He is bringing it, and like, it feels authentic. It feels real. Like, he is just, I'm really loving the character of Jod a lot.
Absolutely. He's doing a great job of, first of all, he's just entertaining and charming to watch on screen. Yeah. But he's doing such a good job of having this overt aloofness or like whimsy to him that's like not serious, and then this underlying edge under everything. Like, you can tell just under the surface is some real danger within him, and I think that's coming through the performance superbly.
This is totally weird and out of left field, but it kind of reminds me of Matt Smith's performance of the Doctor. Like, in Doctor Who, there's that same element of like, I want to trust you, but there's a dark side to you that I know that, like, if I push too hard, it's not going to go well. You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of what he does really good with this character of like, man, there's a darkness in you that, like, I don't know, like, but you're really cool, and I like you haven't been around. Yeah. So I don't know. Fern tells KB to go ahead and turn on SM, and she does. And he comes back to life and asks what they want. And Fern asks if he remembers where At Attin is.
Him waking up is exactly what happens if somebody has to wake me up. I just like, what do you want? Huh? What do you want?
The way he turned his head, too, was really cool. Neil tells them to make him promise that he's not going to attack them. And SM-33 promises and says that they were orders from his former captain, Captain Rennod. Mm-hmm. So there we go, Mac. We get the captain's name, and he's already been mentioned last week. Yeah. So we actually have one mystery solved right there.
Yeah. It was cool that we had heard of him already, and then get confirmation that it is one and the same. But then there's still a lot of mystery surrounding his identity, even with the name. The name doesn't help us a ton. Like, no, we know
it's a new name in Star Wars.
Right. And like, even in the story, we know the only information it gives us is really his reputation and his prominence, like in lore in the galaxy, you know? Yeah. It doesn't tell us anything about, we don't even know what species he is.
No.
I think Weequay is a good guess based on the throne later, but we'll see.
Yeah.
And then they're also just kind of relegated as the pirate species in Star Wars too.
It's gonna be like Hondo's great grandfather or something. But
Renad Onaka.
Oh yeah. I don't know. Let's get to this. So Jod knows the name and realizes that they're on the Onyx Cinder. So that's the first name drop of what the ship is. And like, this is supposed to be like a legendary ship, like the Black Pearl in a way. And the kids, of course, they've never heard of him. And so Jod goes on to explain Renad, which is Donner backwards, by the way, is the most infamous pirate the galaxy has ever known. He plundered several star systems for years before disappearing with his crew and the ship while seeking the lost treasure of At Attin. And Mac, this is where I still keep flip-flopping on if the captain became the supervisor or he is just one of the dead bodies on the ship. Because this scene made me start to think those two mysteries are not connected, but towards the end of the episode, kind of like there's something that makes you go back and question, well, maybe he is the supervisor. I don't know. I keep going back and forth, but this is the kind of the first little thing of like, well, maybe he was the one with the dagger through his body.
I think there's also some very circumstantial evidence later in the episode to indicate that that's the case. That's firmly where I am, where I stand
he was on
right
the
now.
ship.
Yep, I think he was the skeleton with the dagger through his heart,
and that makes sense. And because we even question then, like, that doesn't look human,
right?
Because like the structure doesn't look quite right as a human.
Face, like the face of the skull was not. It was the impression of a skull, not like a recreation.
Yeah. So yeah, it kind of makes me lean towards, okay, then like, he was just dead on the ship the entire time, never became like the Wizard of Oz supervisor type thing. And the supervisor is like a supercomputer just running this system.
Yeah.
That's what happened. But there may be some hints when we get to the end. Well, maybe he did make it off alive. I don't know, because they're very hesitant to show what he looks like. Right. And why is that?
But there is some circumstantial evidence, again, even in his visual representation, that indicates he was the skeleton.
Yeah, I agree.
So I don't know. We'll expound upon that more. But yeah, I don't know. I tend to think he was on the ship. The mutiny succeeded. But I do appreciate that they're leaving the option open in our minds to keep us like, we can't get too comfortable with anything we think we know.
Yeah. Well, I know this. He was very good at setting traps and booby traps and stuff. Really, really cool. But yeah, we'll get to that. But this episode is brought to you by Magic Mind, the world's first productivity shot designed to help you focus, stay motivated, and reduce stress, all while boosting your overall mental performance. Now, I've been using Magic Mind for a little while now, and I'll be honest, it took about 5 days to really feel the difference, but it's been a game changer after you get used to it. It's not some quick fix or caffeine overload. Magic Mind is all about long-term benefits like better focus, mental clarity, and even less procrastination. So what makes it so effective? Well, it's packed with ingredients like adaptogens to lower stress, nootropics to help with focus, and L-theanine to smooth out effects of your morning coffee. So no more jittery buzz or mid-afternoon crashes. Plus, each bottle gives you over 100% of your daily vitamin C and D. But it's not supposed to be a coffee replacement. It's an addition to your routine. I like to drink mine alongside my coffee in the morning, but you can sip it, take it as a shot, or even mix it into a latte. I'm not going to lie. I think you should take it as a shot. If you're curious, I highly recommend taking the 14-day Magic Mind Challenge. Try it daily for 2 weeks and compare how you feel after a week with Magic Mind versus a week without. I noticed I was more productive and less distracted, and it really does take the edge off those scrolling social media moments. Ready to reclaim your focus? Head over to magicmind.com and use the code CHILDREN20 and give Magic Mind a try. That's magicmind.com and use the code CHILDREN20. You'll feel the difference, I promise. Thanks again to Magic Mind for sponsoring this episode and for helping us stay sharp while we create for you. Now back to the episode. Fern is not interested in Renad, and I'm like, Fern, girl, like this is like the coolest thing ever. Why are you interrupting Jod's really cool story here?
Yeah, I'm like, please, I let the man talk.
And so she asks SM-33 again. He says he doesn't know the coordinates to At Attin, but remembers that Renad scanned them into his lair deep beneath Skull Ridge Mountain.
Which is just a perfect piratey sounding location. I'm
pretty sure this is in North Georgia. Like this sounds just like something in the South.
Yeah, I think I hiked through Skull Ridge on the AT, like when I was doing that, I think. Yeah.
Skull Ridge Mountain. Fern orders him to take them there, and he immediately complies and snaps the ropes, which I just thought was really, really great. Of like, oh, you're not holding this guy down.
Yeah.
The Onyx Cinder jumps out of the At Attin system into hyperspace. While in hyperspace, SM-33 explains that Renad began to suspect signs of mutiny among his crew during their journey to At Attin. The first mate became greedy and challenged Renad for right to be captain. And he was betrayed by his concubine, who stabbed him with his own dagger. So like we were talking about, like it's very possible that the skeleton that we see stabbed into the bulkhead of the ship with the sword was Tech Renad.
Yeah.
I want to leave it open to it not being him though.
Yeah.
But like it kind of points to that's probably the case.
And there's one more little piece of evidence coming later that I think kind of solidifies that. But it is interesting. It's more fun, more interesting to keep the option open.
Sure.
I think.
Sure.
Yeah. Also, I just didn't expect that word to show up in Star Wars.
Concubine?
On screen. Yeah.
Yeah. I really love how Neil is like, "What's that?" And Jod's like,
just
"Don't
like,
worry about it.
I'll tell you when you're older." Yep.
Yeah, so the dying captain locked out the ship's controls, and the mutineers died when the Onyx Cinder crashed on At Attin. But again, it was SM-33's hand on the controls, so like he ordered SM-33 to lock out the controls.
Right.
Jod interrupts the story by laughing, and again, Neil asks what a concubine is, but Jod cuts them off. They've heard enough stories. He doesn't want to explain that.
No.
Neil wants to hear more about Captain Rennod's secret lair, and SM-33 says that he misses it. That it was the place that it was built, basically where he was born.
It's his hometown, essentially. Yeah.
He goes on to explain the lair lies inside a mountain where bubbling pits of acid hid the corpses of the captain's foes. Snowball, the rat, pops out of the eye socket of SM and continues to remember his pirate career. But Wim leaves the bridge, and Jod heads into the galley searching for him. So he's telling all these stories and kind of just like, hey, this is what it used to be like. And I do want to pause for a second and ask, how long ago do you think the Onyx Cinder went to At Attin? Because like I think there's evidence that it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
That it's at least 100 years, because it was buried significantly under At Attin. But then also what happened to Lenoa, where there's this whole spa over it, kind of makes you feel like it's not been like just 20 years.
Yeah. No, I think it's been, like you said, more like Jod has never met Captain Rennod, right? This is a legend that has already been passed down several generations by the time we're hearing it from Jod's mouth. So like I definitely think it's pointing to a long time ago. And I guess we also now know that we can talk about At Attin's isolation and the mysteries surrounding At Attin and the events involving the Onyx Cinder separately, right? It doesn't, like, the Onyx Cinder showing up on At Attin doesn't have anything to do with its disappearance kind of from the galaxy or anything like that, because it was already a lost mythical treasure even by that time, right? So the events of the Onyx Cinder crashing and, whatever happened to set At Attin apart from the galaxy, we can talk about those as two completely separate events now, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I think, it's just like, I don't know, I get the sense that it's old, that it's not recent. So just like Fern last week, Wim is starting to crash a little bit, and this happens with kids of like, they're getting overwhelmed, and like this is not, something that kids really should be experiencing. Right. And the reality of the situation is starting to hit him a little bit. And so when Jod finds him, he's kind of like taken aback, like, oh, he's crying, like, oh dear. Like he doesn't want to have to, like, there's a little bit of Jack Sparrow in that little thing of like, he doesn't really want to like comfort him or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I just don't think he knows the first thing to do.
No.
Like, so he's just like, oh, I'm out of my depth now. But,
Yeah.
But I also think it indicates that he registers the need to comfort this kid, right? Like he has compassion for what this kid's going through. I think he just doesn't know personally what to do about it.
Right. Yeah. So Wim explains all he ever wanted was an adventure, and now that he's experiencing it, it's not what he thought it would be. He misses his dad, and then he kind of like makes mention that he can't ever be with his mom. And Jod, being a pirate, does his best to comfort him because it's like, okay, well, I need to say something, but he is a pirate, so it comes across a little harsh. Yeah. So he tells him to forget all about his worries, fears, and even his dad. Mm-hmm. But I love this, Mac, because while it sounds harsh through a pirate lens, he's essentially saying the Jedi teachings to him about no attachments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
This is like guaranteed indication that he was a Padawan at some point, right?
Yeah, I think so.
He has the language that he would have received as, from the Jedi. But I also think this speaks to a almost lifetime of removal from the true context of any of those teachings, right?
Yes.
So he having this very different kind of life than a Jedi was ever supposed to have. I think, that no attachments thing has kind of become twisted in his head, and he's had to make it serve his purposes, right? He's been like, everything that happened to me, which I think this definitely indicates Order 66, like he has obviously had something super traumatic that has taken his entire, like what he considered his family from him, What else is that going to be other than the Great Jedi Purge? And so I think like he's saying, my life, I have had to basically become like stone in regard to all of this trauma that has happened to me, because that's the only way that I've been able to move on and carry forward. Which, like, that part of the advice I think is terrible, right?
Sure.
I think that's terrible advice, and speaks more to his own hang-ups and trauma and brokenness than anything else. But he does continue, and I think the second half of what he says is really good advice.
Yeah.
So
it's warped.
Right.
Like you said, he's lived a lifetime as a pirate, and so it's without the Jedi compassion, it's all pirate now.
Right. So it's just like he has twisted this teaching to mean only look after yourself.
Yes.
Which is not what it means. It means like don't let your love and compassion for other people like cloud your judgment to make you fall. He's been like, no, your attachments are weakness. You can only be strong if you don't have them.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah. So he's using all the language of a Jedi, but then he uses a very specific line that we've heard probably both of our favorite Jedi say before. Wim says...
Jod Narwood may be becoming my favorite Jedi, though.
Yeah, right.
So...
yeah. Wim says he can't forget his family, and then Jod gives him a Qui-Gon line. Qui-Gon Jinn says this very line in The Phantom Menace. He says, your focus determines your reality. And then he uses the Force to lift the story pad into Wim's hands, and he says, you've got vision. Use it, basically. And so I think we have a ton of evidence pointing to at least he was a former Padawan.
At least. I do think the second part of what he says to Wim is great. Like, you have vision, like, decide what you want your life to be like and go make it so. Like, that's good advice for anybody, I think.
No, I mean, I feel like we have to ask this question because of, if you've been with our podcast long enough, you know that we just have to at least address it. Has he ever met Qui-Gon, or is that just more of a common Jedi saying? Which I lean more towards as a common Jedi saying.
I definitely think common Jedi saying. Okay. I'm thinking he's going to be a child at the time of Order 66, so that puts Qui-Gon's death before he would be even born.
Yeah. And again, it makes me think too, and we speculated, I think, on a voicemail episode about this. There's been some rumors that the next animated project is called Star Wars Pirates. It makes sense to me if it follows Jod leaving Order 66 and joining a pirate crew, because it kind of like picks up where the Bad Batch left off. Yeah, and in terms of like Rex the and stuff. Like you can still tell all those stories kind of in order. Like it feels like they wanted to, but with Jod and pirates and stuff. And I think there's like if that's not what it is, I want to see that. Like I want to see more about Jod as a young pirate and like learning to become a pirate and stuff. I think that would be super cool.
I think that also gives you, it allows the Empire to still be the villains while giving you a perspective into characters who are not heroes. And I think that's kind of a cool, something we haven't really done. Like our heroes are pretty heroic in Star Wars.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of hope that's the case. That might be me dreaming a little bit, but that's just me kind of red yarning this a little bit.
I think it makes sense, though. I think that'd make total sense.
I do too, yeah. So he goes on to tell Wim that to make the life he wants to live, and like I said, he uses the Force to bring Wim's story pad back to him, and Wim asks him how he can use the Force if he's not a Jedi, but Jod doesn't tell him. He doesn't really even like acknowledge. He just kind of like looks around and then just walks away, which is exactly what I do to my daughter when she tells me something or asks me something that I just don't want to answer. I'm just like,
Well, he gives him like a little pat, just like a little.
I acknowledge that, but I'm not answering. I do that to my class all the time. Like I'm not gonna tell you. The crew arrive on the planet of Lenoa, but it's changed a lot since SM-33 was last there with Captain Rennod. And I really love the interplay of Jod being excited that they were stopping on a planet known for spas and pleasure yachts, and SM-33 is kind of embarrassed because it's supposed to be like this epic death trap that he and his former captain made. He calls it like Battle World at one point.
He's like, there's many names. It's Battle World or I can't remember the other one he makes for it. And then Lenoa is just one of the names it has had, according to SM-33. I think maybe these tales might be taller in his mind than in the rest of the galaxies.
Yeah, I love it. And so before they land, they're contacted by the hotel spa, and they overhear the children talking and remind them that children are not permitted on the surface. So Jod has a plan. When they land, Jod comes out acting like some kind of herald and announces the arrival of the elders of the Batrix system. And the kids come out in oversized costumes that don't really fit, and Jod pretends to translate for them since they don't speak basic. I love this. This is like, and also like, how are the guards like? Those aren't just kids. Those are kids right there. But maybe again, it's a big galaxy.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have a more open mind about what constitutes an adult in terms of appearance. I think in the Star Wars galaxy, right?
Yeah. Like, would Grogu be allowed on the surface since he's 50?
Because exactly. So like, how does that all work? I think you have to have a little more nuance. But I do want to draw attention to well, first of all, a quick joke. I really hoped they were going to do like two kids in a trench coat.
On top of each other,
like on each other's shoulders, you know, but
Little Rascals style.
Yeah, it might have been a little too goofy, a little too silly, but I would have loved that. But I want to draw attention to Wim. I think he was intentionally supposed to look like Davy Jones.
Yes,
because he, like, the way his little veil thing is in the first shot looks like kind of the tentacle beard he has. But the hat he's wearing was taken off of the skeleton with a dagger through it.
Okay.
I just want to plant that in everybody's minds.
And
right there.
In the broken hologram, we do see a hat.
It is the same hat Wim is wearing.
Interesting.
So I do think that's further indication.
Okay.
I could be mistaken.
Right.
I haven't
right.
gone back and like reviewed the game time footage kind of deal, so I could be mistaken.
I just assume it's going to be Dave Filoni in Weequay makeup, right? Like wearing the hat.
That'd be amazing. I would love that.
Yes. Yeah. So Jod is pretending to translate for them, and he's just making up gibberish, and they're responding. Clearly, they're having fun doing it. And Lenoa is a peaceful planet. You know this because they get like these Lairs on them when they get there, which is really nice, and I want one. I
would spend a week on Lenoa for sure.
Oh yeah, like Canto Bight is not my speed. Lenoa is my speed.
Yes. I think it looks like a much better vacation relaxation destination.
Yeah. And so they take Jod's sword, but as they walk away, he uses the Force to get it back. They hand him a margarita, and he just immediately starts drinking it.
It looks exactly like one of the spicy margaritas they sell at the cantina in Mexico in Epcot.
Well, you know they're going to start selling it at Oga's Cantina.
Of course.
100%.
The spicy
margarita.
Ronto or something. I don't know.
We are informed by the intendant that the spas are hosting the banking clan for an economic summit. So they're on high alert for spies and imposters. But okay, so we've got to talk about that. Yeah. The banking clan is here. And that's like, you might be listening and you're like, what's the big deal? Well, it's a huge deal because, like, let me push up my glasses here.
Actually.
Because the Clone Wars and the banking clan basically funded everything that was going on with the Clone Wars. There's actually a lot of arcs about this in the Clone Wars cartoon series. Yeah. But also it's a big deal because we know that Darth Plagueis was also Hugo Damask, who was part of the banking clan, and basically used the banking clan to fund the cloning of the clones and get the Clone Wars started, and probably used it to fund the Death Star and stuff like that. So I don't know.
That is in Legends at this point.
It is in Legends, but like with Darth Plagueis being in canon now from the Acolyte, I think we can assume most of his story is probably canon.
Like, unless we hear different, we can just kind of go on the template that already exists. That makes sense.
All that to say is, like, the Sith manipulated the banking clan for their purposes. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they're here on Lenoa, and you've got the whole Old Republic Mint thing happening concurrently with that, I think, and we actually see some Munes, which is the species of Darth Plagueis, like lounging in the mud baths.
Yeah,
like,
I know what a topless Mune looks like now.
Which we've always wanted to know.
You know, it's been one of the most burning questions on my mind.
Now, Keimer and Plagueis could both be shirtless together.
Oh, yep.
How about that?
That'd be something.
That'd be so awesome. We need season 2 now.
It'd be something.
Okay, here's a question though that I've got before we get into the economics, all this, like when we talk about the Old Republic Mint. Is it possible that Renad may have been like may even have built these spas above his lair in order to do things like host the banking clan. Does it point all the way back to the Acolyte time period and Plagueis, who was in the banking clan for funding all these evil projects that eventually lead to the Empire?
So I'm leaning with, if we are going on the Renad was on the Onyx Cinder dead, we're gonna refer to that as the dagger in the heart theory. Okay. So dagger in the heart theory means that Tak Rennod
and Wizard of Oz theory is the other one.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. That works perfectly.
Okay.
So dagger in the heart theory would say that SM-33 had not seen the spas and everything, and the last time he was activated was when the captain died. So the captain wouldn't have been able to do that.
Yes.
And like put up all the spas to launder money or whatever. But if we're going with the Wizard of Oz theory, where he made it off of the Onyx Cinder, that's very possible.
Yes.
And if he has become the supervisor and is kind of doing a similar thing on At Attin, maybe this was sort of the blueprint, right?
Yes.
Like he set this up first and got kind of worked out all the kinks in the plan, and then did it like on a planetary scale with At Attin.
Or like he was sending the money out from At Attin to Lenoa,
right, to get it
the
rest
dispersed
of the galaxy.
Into the galaxy.
Yeah, something like that. Who knows? But
either way, like I think it's very pointed that the banking clan is there. We even see a hut there, which makes me think like maybe we are pointing to this is how the First Order got funding to build all the things that they got, and you know what I mean. Like there's some sort of black market that allowed the First Order to be built in the first place. And I think that's kind of where, regardless of whether we're going with the dagger in the heart theory or the Wizard of Oz theory, I do think it's pointing to that.
Yep.
In my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. For sure. It's really like this is honestly a fascinating environment to think about in Star Wars, like a neutral location where the huts and the banking clan all go here to hang out and relax and stuff. Like what kind of backroom dealings are happening? Like what like I want the Hotel Artemis version of Lenoa. I don't know if you've seen that movie, but
yeah, I know what you're talking about. Like,
it's like emergency room for criminals. So like it's a neutral ground for all kinds of folks.
This is begging for like a series of short stories called Tales of Lenoa or Tales from Lenoa. You know what I mean? Like where it's like all these things happen at this hotel that impact the galaxy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. There's something,
I think that'd be cool.
There's something there though. There's something going on the planet currently.
Yeah.
Still pretending to be guest, Jod realizes he's going to have to use all the old Republic credits the kids have to still buy a reservation that they don't actually have. So he starts bribing the receptionist so they can check in under the name of Professor Gorlox. The receptionist...
I hated Professor Gorlock's class in college. It was the only D I ever got.
So boring. The receptionist is responding to the credits till another person walks up to him, a bounty hunter named Pocket, played by Brave's Kelly MacDonald. So she is the voice of Meridia in Brave. And sees Jod, but calls him Dash Zenton, which I loved because my headcanon is that Jod met Dash Rendar and took his first name.
Yeah.
That's my headcanon now.
I love that because I think he's just handing out names in the moment as they come to him, and he met Dash Rendar or heard a story about him or something. He's like, Dash, that'll work. Yeah,
I'm Dash Zenton. We don't know the species of Pocket, but she looks Umbaran to me. I think she's Umbaran or she's whatever Asajj Ventress is.
Yeah, I'm like
Dathomirian, I guess. Dathomirian, I don't know.
I didn't get a good look at her hands or anything, but she also kind of looks like Aura Singh.
Yeah, you're right. Yep.
Like I don't know, it's some combination of that, those three things.
Yeah. Apparently Dash left her for dead a long time ago, and she promises there's no bad blood between them. Yeah, right. Fern starts to listen in to the increasingly tense conversation and hears his numerous names. We get Captain Silvo, Crimson Jack, Jod Nawood. Later we get Jodwig Zank, which is my favorite one, and Dash Zinton.
Yeah.
Pocket pretty much says that there's a bounty on his head, but she's only interested in enjoying her time on Zanupa. And
Lenoa, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Lenoa. Sorry, I put Zanupa. It's all the Z's, Jodwig Zank and Dash Zinton. But again, Pocket mentions the bounty. The bounty was mentioned in the recap of the episode too. There might be more coming with the bounty thing.
I think that's probably true. They're definitely keeping that in the forefront of our minds. I would not be super surprised if a very high profile bounty hunter of some sort showed up next week.
Please God, please God, I would die. I think we would have to start podcasting like right at midnight as New Year's Eve starts. Like no notes. We're just going.
Ring in the new year just with a breakdown. Why not?
Yeah. Pocket leaves, but before she does, she warns the kids not to trust this Slimo, which again, another Phantom Menace.
We've not gotten a good Slimo in a long time. It comes up occasionally. I think Ahsoka used to throw around a Slimo, but I like it.
To throw that around.
Yeah. She used the S-bomb.
Yeah. The kids get to their suite, and what do? They act like kids. They're looking at everything. They're jumping on everything. They're touching it all. They're having a pillow fight on the bed, all while Jod is freaking out. And he knows the bounty's out on them. And like he gets mad at them because they're like not paying attention. He's like, "There's bounty hunters coming. Did you even hear what I just said?" And Fern's like,
indeed
"What I just said." I just love their relationship specifically.
I love the mutual antagonism they have.
Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah, and he tells them that they need to take this seriously because he also knows that his former crew is probably now on their way to get him. And so Fern asks what happened between him and Pocket, and kind of also hinting like this also happened with Kim that we met, like what's going on here, because she's noticing a trend with all the people who know him. Absolutely no one trusts Jod. Nobody.
Yep. Yeah, that's always a red flag.
Yeah, not a good thing. So he brushes it off and reiterates that they have to find the coordinates to At Attin. And so after an initial disagreement about how they'll split up, and like Wim's like, "I want to search the buffet," and Jod's like, "We're not searching the buffet." He just freaks
like
out
wrangling cats. Like, I don't know. Anybody who has ever been in charge of a group of children understands this
is real.
Like, Jod is the spirit of me as a summer camp counselor. And this was when I myself was like 16 17 kind of deal, like in high school. But like, you're in charge of a group of 11, 12-year-olds, and it's like
oh my gosh.
Like they have no respect for you, for themselves, for anything. It's amazing.
I love it. But so he kind of freaks out, and they decide to break up into two groups, and they're looking specifically for Renad's symbol, which is a really cool symbol. Like if I'm ever going to get a tattoo and this ends up being like super cool, like that's one of the ones that that's a cool one to get.
I had the same thought. I was like, okay, that's in my queue for getting a tattoo. So I got to see how Captain Rennod's story ends up and all that. But
too soon, But
did you notice how similar it looks to the symbol for Republic credits? Like their version of the $sign.
That's interesting. So maybe Renad is like old, like Zim the Despot old.
Yeah. So like the in-universe $sign essentially is like a 7 with the two little lines going through the top part of it. That's, if you like kind of squint at this logo, it's exactly what it looks like. It's got the 7 shape and then the 2 little things up top. So I think that's something to keep an eye out for.
That's really interesting. Okay. Yeah, so they break up into 2 teams to look for this symbol somewhere in the spa, like, oh, this leads to the lair. And so Jod, Neil, and KB are investigating the upper levels while Fern, Wim, and SM go into the lower levels. And again, they're looking for that symbol. Also want to note that KB is afraid to go down into the lair, and Fern asks if it's because of all the steam causing corrosion. That's probably something to keep an eye out on, because there's even a moment where some steam gets in her visor and she kind of freaks out a little bit.
Yeah, they've been giving us a lot of breadcrumb.
It's the day after Christmas.
It is. Go easy on us.
We both struggled today.
a lot of breadcrumbs. As for her like medical conditions, we don't know exactly the nature of them still, but they're constantly reminding us that they exist. It's something to keep in mind.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Pocket calls Captain Brutus to claim Jod's bounty, and we get confirmation from Brutus that he's also sending 2 ships. So in the upper levels, a Hutt bathes in the mud baths, and the attendant has this moment with the Hutt that I could not stop laughing at. It might be, honestly, one of my all-time favorite Star Wars moments. I'm not lying about this. As the attendant is talking to the Hutt just lifts him and opens his mouth, and the guy goes, "Oh no, not again."
Like, that man got eaten. That man got swallowed by a Hutt.
He's like, please no, not again. And the Hutt just doesn't care.
I have questions about what this says about the Hutt's digestive tract. I have, it's... But that was
one of the greatest moments.
That happened, and I just had to like sit there with my mouth open for a little bit.
It was so good. It was just so good because, like, you know, if you're just looking at Jod and them and you're not really paying attention to what's going on, but like that dude, that attendant just got eaten again. Like, it's not the first time. I love it.
And like I don't know if that means like he himself has been eaten and digested by a Hutt before, or if like it's notorious that attendants get eaten and he is just the next of a long line of attendants to lose their lives. I also have questions about like how this is considered with the neutrality rules on.
You let a Hutt do whatever they want when they come.
I think that's obviously
you don't want to mess with that Hutt. That Hutt looked really big.
It's looking really big, looking a little swole, and I had
maybe it's
I had questions about Jeremy Allen White and if he was this shredded Hutt. I don't know.
Oh, please no, not again. Like I just want to clip that little audio and play it every time I start talking about Abeloth. You just play that.
Anytime Lost comes up.
I just love that moment. It was so good.
It was great.
It was good to see a Hutt again.
Yeah.
Too. Like it's just really cool.
Yeah. For sure.
Jod accidentally draws the attention of some guards while he's looking at some ancient markings, which are kind of derivative of Sith writings, by the way. Mm-hmm. We've tried to decipher what it says, but kind of like the scroll, it's gibberish, unless somebody like Gary figures it out. I don't know what it says on the wall, but he's really interested on what it says on the wall. And then a guard notices them and kind of asks, "Hey, you're Professor Gorlox, right?" And Jod doesn't know what to say, and so he like, just says, "Run!" Yeah. They just start running.
You can see him doing the mental calculations, right? He's like, how far am I going to be able to take this lie? With the I don't even know if this is the correct name. Like, I don't know if he's testing me. Right. I don't know. So
I don't know what he's a professor of.
Yeah, he's just like, all right, it's time to go. just cut and run.
Down below, Fern and her team follows the pipes down the mountains and ends up befriending a very large guest named Cathalops.
All hail Cathalops.
It's supposed to be like Cthulhu, right?
Yes, I mean the spelling and everything is of course. I mean it's a tentacle monster, so it's. But I love that Cathalops is just also trying to hang out and relax on this spa planet. You know,
it's interesting that he immediately thought that someone like Fern might have been an assassin. So like, what does he do?
Like, how important is Cathalops? He's, I don't know, Cathalops is my new favorite character in Star Wars. I think we should just pivot the franchise to be about Cathalops now.
You give off major Cathalops vibes. Just, your energy is his energy. You guys vibe pretty well, I think.
I like Cathalops. I mean, he's just trying to hear some good stories.
That's all he wants. Like, listen, I'll let you go if you just tell me some good stories here.
Yeah, he's not trying to hurt anybody. He's just trying to have a good time, hear some stories,
relax.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
love it.
So they end up telling their adventures to him, and when Jod and the others make their way down after punching out some guards, and we see the naked munes in the mud. Yep. Jod gets down there, and when Cathalops sees him, he's like, "Oh yeah, don't trust this guy.
No,
you told me enough, and I'm seeing him now. Don't trust him."
Yeah, he's bad news. And so, like, someone who has not even met Jod, like, forget everyone who has already encountered Jod. They don't trust him. Someone who's just meeting him for the first time already doesn't trust him.
Yeah. So Fern already found the mark of Renad, and because they told the stories to Cathalops, he helps them out. He does them solid. Drops a giant tentacle on the seal.
It's a tentacle with, like, a mace at the end.
Yeah. Which is really cool. Again, your vibe. Totally you.
Okay.
I need an artist to draw Mac as a Cathalops creature, and we put it on a shirt. And it says for sure on it.
Macthalops.
Mathalops. Mathalops. Cathalacy.
I don't know.
No, I like Mathalops.
We'll workshop it.
Anyway, he uses his mace tentacle to open up the tomb of Renad, and just as they break through, the pirates arrive over Lenoa. As they descend into Renad's lair, SM reminds them of the booby traps, and Neil accidentally activates one, and the laser sweeps above them all, and SM pulls Jod down so they're not decapitated. I love all of this sequence. It's very Indiana Jones.
Yeah, I mean, making it through all the traps and everything like that. It's like that first opening sequence of Raiders of the Lost Ark, bringing you right back there.
There's a little bit of every Indiana Jones. I'm a huge Indiana Jones movie.
Oh yeah, I mean, and it's the other Lucasfilm thing. So
it's the one other thing. Yeah.
Sorry, Willow, but
Willow. But yeah. So you've got that. That's very Raiders. But then there's the spikes that come down is very Temple of Doom. Right, and then I feel like the last one where it's like you almost have to take a leap of faith is Last Crusade,
or like make it's more of like a riddle, a mental kind of thing to fizzle out or to fizzle out to puzzle out. I think I combined figure and puzzle, and it came out as fizzle out.
I just love that Tech Rennod is also an Indiana Jones fan.
Yes,
like how cool would it be to set traps like that in a lair? That would be fun.
Home Alone style. It's got to be just so fun.
Yeah. So they're being pursued by the pirates in Pocket, but they hit a roadblock in one chamber that is flooded with acid after SM tests it with his foot. And they search for a lever, but KB sees the words on the ceiling, and it says, "All who enter paradise must make the great sacrifice." Mm-hmm. So for a pirate, that's not your life, but treasure. So Jod throws their last credit into the acid pool. At first, nothing happens, and then it starts draining and reveals a set of stairs leading down into the treasure room. And you see some skeletons, which kind of indicate that someone got there and did not do the right thing.
It's like, oh, it's water. I'll swim.
Yep. And the pirate, because that would have been me. The pirates arrive right behind them, and they run in, shutting the door behind them. And so as we enter the lair of Captain Tech Rennod, we see the treasure is all over. And I tried my best spotting anything of significance besides the lightsaber, and the only thing I really spotted is a gold statue of the elephant species of Neil. And I will say that is a credit to the Wizard of Oz theory that maybe Captain Rennod and the others, maybe there's others who like started the At Attin Society when they found the planets and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it at least, because we know that this species, like whatever Neil is, because do we have a name for it yet?
I don't think so.
So whatever the Neils are, is not Max Rebo, and I can never remember that species. Ortolan. They're not that. So like, we haven't seen Neil species anywhere else. This does indicate that he maybe made it to At Attin and at least learned of their existence at some point, you know?
Or maybe like part of their pirate crew, if it's like maybe not all of them died and they started this society. I don't know. And like they basically schemed their way into becoming the credit providers for the entire galaxy.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I'm leaning more towards the dagger in the heart theory, I think.
Yeah. That's where I'm at.
But now that they're in there, they need to find the coordinates. And Jod warns them that it's probably booby-trapped as well. And so they start to spread out to look for it. And that is when Wim spots the old, ornate-looking lightsaber on a pedestal. Yep. And it kind of looks like a High Republic lightsaber to me.
Yeah, it's got that lighter color scheme with a lot of like gold and whitish, like very light metals and stuff like that. Versus the prequel eras, you see a lot more like
black and silver,
utilitarian looking elements on the lightsabers. So yeah, I would definitely date it probably as High Republic.
Yeah,
and that's exciting too, because that puts Renod's activities like
he might
200
years
Nile. Ago.
Yeah, he might have been part of the Nile. So that's like, okay, so the High Republic era is 500 to 100 years before the prequel movies. And so we saw the tail end of it in The Acolyte. Yep. That's kind of the ending of the High Republic era as we transition into the prequel era. But it's still all part of the old Republic. Like, even though it's called the High Republic, it's like when the Republic was at its zenith, the Jedi at their zenith, like the best it could ever be, was during that time period. And so the Jedi ended up making these lightsabers that were more ceremonial than they never really had to use them until the whole Nile situation, right? Like they're more ceremonial. Like, this is what the Jedi used to do, but we make them look pretty and nice and stuff. So yeah. Neil is the one that notices that something looks off, though. On a table, there's all this rotten food except for a single roast that still looks fresh. Jod stops Neil from hitting a trap door beneath, and he cautiously flips over the roast to reveal the data port that they're looking for, and it rises into the treasure room. And so with it, SM-33 pulls up the coordinates to At Attin. They find it. They have a way home now.
Yep.
And while he does, Jod orders 33 to fill the outer chamber with acid. Yep. And the kids listen in horror as the pirates scream as the chamber is flooded with acid, and then just silence.
Yeah. So like, that's, not very Jedi-like, but what you
also
gonna do?
Don't think all of them died, because I think Gunther, Jaleel White's character, we see a scene in the trailer where I think they're still on Lenoa and there's X-Wings flying over, and there's like him and another pirate on the like kind of landing pad. So I think a couple of them survive. Yeah.
I mean, the acid doesn't fill like the whole room. So
yeah. So it started filling up first few at the door. Sorry guys. And then they make their way out. Yeah. But this is kind of the first hint of darkness that we see from Jod of like, okay, there's like a switch that is turned on now that he's found the coordinates to Attin. It's like the greed is taking over.
Well, when he walked in this room, a huge, like almost crazed grin came up. Like he took a moment while the kids were already rushing in to just like take it in. And he almost had the smile like the Grinch, where it curls up on the ends, you know?
But Jod wants to make sure that this is real, and he wants to hear from Renad himself. And again, Mac, this is where I start questioning the dagger in the heart theory, because why can't we fully see the captain? It's a very broken hologram. Is there a reason we can't see what he looks like?
So a very just practical kind of meta reason could be that they just haven't really decided what he looks like, but they want to keep it open. They don't want to get locked into any one thing for future stories.
Okay.
Like maybe they are going to cast somebody as this person for pirates or what, or you know, who knows. So like they may be just obscuring him, keeping him open, almost like you know how we didn't see Thanos at the end. Like when they started including Thanos, they didn't have Josh Brolin cast yet, right?
Yeah.
So like they kind of obscured him, and so that they didn't get locked into any one thing for when he does eventually show up. That's kind of what it seemed like to me. But when he does eventually show up, could be in this show. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. I think it will be.
I kind of don't think so, but I would love to be wrong on that because I want to know.
I don't know. They just like, you could not get a very like, you saw the figure for a second and it just keeps cutting out, especially on his face. You do see him wearing a hat, which leads credence to the dagger in the heart theory.
It's the exact same hat that Wim is wearing earlier in the show. It's like the kind of classic pirate hat, but it's got two layers to it. Like two brims almost. So I think that's that is in support of the dagger in the heart theory. But
I don't know. But we hear from him and we get another mystery kind of solved here.
Right.
We learn from Renad himself that At Attin is the last Old Republic mint.
Yeah.
And you really start to feel everything change in the room as Jod turns and invokes the right to challenge to Fern. But let's talk about real quick it being the last Republic mint.
Yes. So to me, that's an interesting detail. Like that's a very peculiar thing for it to be. Because generally speaking, like if you think of our mints, right? The mints that are making, like for us, American legal tender,
sure,
like the US dollar, they're just printing money. It's not like
it's not backed by anything anymore.
Yeah, and it's not the paper that inherently has any value, you know.
Sure.
So I'm wondering if the reason why everybody loves the Old Republic credits is because they are actually like maybe they're printed on a material that's more valuable than the credit value, or
kind of like gold, but Star Wars equivalent. I mean, I'm sure there's gold in Star Wars, but like something more precious.
Right. So it's like the because the Republic credit is not based on like for lack of a better term, the gold standard.
Yeah.
And this one is that's what makes it so valuable. Like maybe they have for every little credit a little piece of gold sat back, you know, in their version of Fort Knox or whatever.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's interesting.
Not something that I thought we would be talking about in this show.
Yeah, like it was surprising to me that it was something so, for lack of a better term, like mundane, right? And so that's, I think, why I think there's something else about At Attin other than this Republic mint that you know makes it so special. Like the mint would explain why pirates want to get to it, right? It's just a big old, you know, storehouse of credits or something. But like it was less fantastic than I was expecting. So that almost leads me to believe that Max Fiberblade says something else is going on.
Well, I mean, then when you take into the addition the ancient looking scroll, it's like to me, it's like they decided to make those planets the Old Republic meant because they were already hidden and protected because of whatever reason they were special. You know what I mean? It's like...
Exactly.
So
the Mint could explain some of the like the barrier and or maybe not the barrier, but like the security droids and stuff like that. There could be increased security protocols on this planet because of its nature as the Mint. But like you said, I think it's more likely they selected it as a location for the Mint due to another factor.
Right. Yeah. So, and I think that factor has something to do with the Jedi.
Yes.
And probably a Jedi temple because of Wim's story and them mentioning it in the very first episode. Again, we could be totally wrong and it just be the Old Republic Mint. It could just be that.
And that's fine. Like, it doesn't...
Yeah, it's totally fine.
That just makes it more of like, this is the nebulous idea of treasure at that point, right? And so it just works as a MacGuffin of, this is... Yeah, pirates are trying to get it because it's valuable. And that works. That works narratively.
Yeah.
I just, as a Star Wars fan, I'm hoping for like a little more, you know?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, but like I said, you start to feel everything change in the room as Jod turns and invokes the right to challenge Fern. And per the code, she can yield and he becomes the captain. And he tells her to do just that. Fern doesn't, though. Instead, she tries to fight, and he easily overpowers her and turns his sword on her. And the betrayal we've been talking about finally comes. And I'm glad it came early because I was kind of expecting maybe like episode 7 right before the end. This gives more time for him to like think through what he did.
Yeah.
And then actually go save them. And like we get a little more character work out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was very pleased to see this happening right now because we get 3 full episodes for not only, like, we know that there's a lot of backstory information coming, like probably in episode 7. So we're not only getting the explanation of like what made him how he is now, that also leaves time for him to have that redemption arc and to realize mistakes or you know, whatever it be. So that just gets me really excited for where that character could end up by episode 8.
Yeah, I just love that decision. And there's always something big that happens in every episode 5 of every Star Wars television show for some reason. Like, I don't know why, except Andor, like, even though I feel like something big does happen in that. But like the 8-episode structure, 5 is the episode where something happens that kind of flips the story on its head. So Wim is ready to be the hero, though, and he picks up the lightsaber from earlier and approaches Jod, and Jod's like, wait, Wim, don't do this. And he takes a deep breath, and he ignites the lightsaber just like I would, and it's upside down, and he almost cuts himself, and he screams, and it flies out of his hand to the ground, and I absolutely love that. It was another great moment.
Yeah, for sure, because it allows Wim to have a character moment of, like, embracing that, standing up to Jod, like in defense of his friend, and like has, you know, he gets to have that moment, but it's also showing his naivety, his inexperience, and, you know, we don't actually have to have like him having a Finn moment right now where he has an actual fight with someone who's way more experienced. So I liked how that went. I think the lightsaber is a Shoto, like the secondary one like Ahsoka has. That's not the longer one, but it's like a little bit shorter.
Yeah,
the blade looked proportionally sized to Wim, so I think on like an adult humanoid, it'd be a little short.
There are some lightsabers, though Wim wouldn't know this, that you can adjust the length of depending on the user.
And that's also like you can do it mid-battle to throw your opponent off kind of deal.
Corran Horn was very famous for doing that, and it's a really cool move he has in the EU timeline of Star Wars. But Corran is also canon, by the way. They confirmed that little kid in Obi-Wan Kenobi that was being smuggled off is Corran Horn.
Nice.
Which is really, really cool. But with no other options, Fern yields. Now that Jod is the captain, he orders 33 to take the kids prisoner, and as he approaches, Wim smartly triggers the traps by the dinner table, and they drop through the floor to escape. Then the episode ends with Jod using the Force to take the lightsaber for his own, and we cut to black as he ignites it. And I think he has to be an Order 66 survivor.
Yeah, I think so. I think there was a recognition, a familiarity in that smile, like he had been reunited with something that he had been long apart from, Like, I don't think this is his former lightsaber or anything. That's not what I'm saying. But it's like, yeah, he once knew what it was to have a lightsaber and had trained in a lightsaber, but then whatever happened the Order 66, whatever happened to displace him, he was without it. So now it's like it's like getting your phantom limb back almost.
Yeah. Or like, if you've been on vacation for a long time and you haven't drove your car.
Yeah.
It's like driving your car again. You're like, oh yeah.
Like normally something that's mundane at best and like almost a chore at worst. Yeah. It really gives you a new appreciation for it when you have been like a passenger for a week or two.
Yeah. Now I will say, did you notice it seemed like this scene in particular was a reshoot because Jude Law's hair looks significantly different in this particular scene. And I'm sorry if I'm pointing this out and you can't unsee it. But to me, the reason I bring that up is because it points to maybe they decided on something different later down the line where he needs a lightsaber.
Yeah.
And originally that wasn't the case.
Well, maybe it could also be like they give him a lightsaber to keep him alive for future stories, like where originally he was not going to make it out of the series or something like that.
Yeah, maybe that's the case of like, okay, this is.
They had to change something up to
he doesn't die.
Yeah, for future plans, and having a lightsaber makes the difference in between that. I don't know.
To me, Jod is the perfect character to even include in the Dave Filoni crossover movie that's coming to help explain things that are going on in Ahsoka, like these legends that Baylan is talking about all the time, that he's talking very vaguely about. I would imagine Jod probably has some legends of his own that he could probably help relate to the heroes and stuff. Yeah. And he's one of those characters too of like, can we actually trust him as he's doing these things? Like he would be a fun addition, I think, to that huge crossover event that's coming.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Plus another movie star for the movie too. Yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like Jude Law, I think sells a lot. And I hate that this show is not getting the recognition that it deserves because like I said at the beginning of this episode, if you wanted to argue that this is the best Star Wars show, I'm not going to push too hard against that because I think right now it's sitting at number 2 for me. And like that was Ahsoka for me. And again, this show's not over. It kind of depends on how it ends. Right. But like in terms of like this just captures Star Wars so perfectly. It's so well done. It's so well written, so well acted. Like it's just it's got everything that I kind of want in a Star Wars TV show included in it, and I'm just really digging it. I can't wait to see what happens next week in Bryce Dallas Howard's episode.
Yeah, for sure. I can't wait to see where the kids end up. I think they're going to go uncover another secret probably in the trapdoor route and stuff like that. And then maybe we'll get a cool cameo or something like that. So
I mean, like I imagine they're not probably getting off Lenoa right away, right? Yeah. And so they're trying to escape from Jod and the pirates.
Yes,
and they might need a little help doing that, right?
That may be the catalyst for getting them kind of back on the same team.
Yeah.
At least for the moment. But
yeah,
we will see. We definitely want to hear what you, the listeners, have to say about the episode. Give us a call at 205-259-6675, and you may find yourself on our upcoming Skelephone Hotline episodes. Those have been so much fun this season. Let's keep that going. Also, don't forget to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts if you have not already. We do have a giveaway contest going on right now for a Grogu Pram Lego set. One of our lovely patrons, Skyleton crew, right now, has donated and is putting on. So you can check the description for more details about how to enter and everything like that. But basically the gist is leave us a review add the phrase "I" at the end. And then screenshot it and email it to us, and you'll be entered to win that Lego set. So don't forget about that. Check out the description for more details if you want to enter. But yeah, leave your rating and review, and that also just helps us out a lot, getting us in front of more ears and stuff like that. So
yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm crossing my fingers for some Den action, but if it doesn't happen, I don't even care, because like this. It's just so much fun, and I can't wait to see what the next episode's all about. And like Max said, we want to hear from you guys. You'll be getting that voicemail episode and bonus voicemail episode before the episode 6 breakdown comes. So definitely check those things out. And check out keepthewatch.com for some cool merch as well. But I think that just about does it for us, Mac.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we will see you very soon for our voicemail episodes. But until then, keep the watch.